This presentation is about labor trafficking among the runaway and/or homeless female population. We'll start by talking about the overview. Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sexual act. Every year, millions of people are being trafficked around the world. There are three main elements to human trafficking, which are actions, means, and purpose. There are two common types of human trafficking, which are sexual trafficking and labor trafficking. Sex trafficking is where the trafficker uses force, fraud, or coercion to compel a person to engage in commercial sexual act. Labor trafficking involves the trafficker using force, fraud, or coercion to obtain labor or services for another person. Situations for forced labor include factories, domestic labor, agriculture, international drug smuggling, sex trade, related labor, and commission-based sales. The homeless population is considered as a population that is vulnerable and is at risk for being trafficked. The fear of sleeping on the streets leaves the homeless a vulnerable group. Women are also considered as a vulnerable population, and according to Safe Horizon, 71% of all victims are women and girls. There are many tactics used to lure in victims. One of those tactics used is the American Dream tactic. This is where the trafficker uses victims' motivation for a better life and use it as an opportunity to lure them into trafficking. Through things like social media, victims hear about the opportunity and fall for the tactic without knowing the true nature of the job. Fraud is often used where false promises are made to the victim about the job, the conditions, and the compensation. Coercion can also be used where the trafficker threatens to give the job away, and the victims usually don't have the time to read or understand the contracts and sign before they sign it. Traffickers sometimes use things like romance and tales about good jobs with good wages to lure the victims in. For identification and screening, as we all know, it is not easy to identify a victim of human trafficking, as everyone is different. Because of that, there are no easy ways to identify a victim. In many cases, the victims are unable to identify themselves as a human trafficking victim. Their failure to understand this will decrease their chance of reaching out for help and getting help in general. Potential physical indicators include frequent treatment of STIs, high number of sexual partners, exposure to toxic chemicals, malnourishment, self-harm, physical and sexual abuse. Behavioral indicators include contradicting stories, unable to stay focused, unaware of the current date, time, or location, heightened stress response, and depression. Social and environmental indicators include being absent from school, increase in substance use, repeat runaway, unable to speak for themselves, and evidence of being controlled and living at the worksite. Healthcare professionals can use toolkits and assessments to screen human trafficking victims. Some of those toolkits include Human Trafficking Medical Assessment Tool by Polaris Project, Trafficking Victim Identification Tool by Vera Institute of Justice, Adult and Child Tools for Suspected Victims by Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and Genesee County Medical Society, and Adult Human Trafficking Screening Tool by the United States Department of Health and Human Services. For evaluation and management, to ensure the safety of the victim An interview can be conducted in a private place, away from the trafficker, to understand whether the victim is requesting for rescue. It is considered human trafficking for victims under the age of 18, whether there was consent or not. So for any victim under 18, Child Protective Services must be contacted. The victim receives intervention including contacting local services and the FBI. For adult victims that wish to be rescued, charge nurse should notify nursing leadership to contact local police and FBI Trafficking Division. They also work with social work and locals to provide for patients' immediate needs and safety, such as housing, food, and medical treatment. What the victim needs most is an environment where they can feel safe. So in order to provide that for them, it is our responsibility to ensure that we provide trauma-informed care by creating a trusting relationship. Always minimize the distress, provide emotional support, and give the patient the choice of what they want to do next. Our goal is to restore their independent living. There are many resources out there that we can provide for victims of human trafficking. Outreach programs that should target women may be trafficked, such as social media, online job sites, bus stops, and transportation systems. Another resource is Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000 states that victims of trafficking are eligible for cash assistance, food stamps, Medicaid, and SSI. Government-funded programs that are available to trafficking victims include crisis counseling, short-term housing, and mental health assistance. The Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program provides financial assistance and services to prevent individuals and families from being homeless and helps those who are homeless to be quickly rehoused. There is also the Covenant House, which provides safe shelter, food, clothing, medical care, education, and life skills for pregnant and parenting youth. And a local service around our area is the Alternatives for Girls. Their mission provides shelter so that women and girls can avoid opportunities that may turn into labor trafficking. Alternative for Girls provides housing for 18 to 24-year-olds experiencing homelessness. They also provide education and vocational training in order to pursue employment opportunities. Thank you.